This morning, we are continuing the sermon series, Stories We Should Never Ever Tell Our Children. In this series, we are looking at some of the beloved Bible stories that we tell to our children in Vacation Bible School, Sunday School, children's ministry, stories that we think are really good things to tell our kids. And they are, as long as we leave out the parts that we don't like to tell our kids. You know, things like genocide, nudity, drunkenness, beheadings, extinction-level events, the difficult, scary, violent, distinctly unkid-friendly parts of our favorite children's Bible stories. And this morning, if you couldn't already guess, we are talking about the story of David and Goliath. David and Goliath is an all-time favorite children's Bible story. It is the story of David and Goliath. And David's life before and after are really, at their heart, stories of clashing generations, of generational change that happens in important ways. And what we see in the story are these themes of conflict and change, and some are multifaceted, and there are lessons to be learned both for our younger people and for our more chronologically advanced folks here in the congregation. So let's talk about this story. First, we need to talk about the part that you know or the part that you think you know really well. The part you read to your kids with a little extra background information. So this story takes place about 1100 BC, so 1100 years before Jesus. The kingdom of Israel has just been established. They have, after much pleading to God, gotten their first king. If you don't remember, the Israelites came into their land. This was their promised land, and they were so excited to be there. But they complained and whined, like children often do, and said, but we want a king. All the other kingdoms have a king. We want a king. And God said, I'm your king. You don't need a king. They said, we want a king. So he gave them Saul. Didn't work out so well. Unfortunately, Saul fails to follow the commands of God, and God decides that he wants someone else to be king instead of Saul. He sends Samuel, a man after his own heart, to another man named Jesse, and he says one of Jesse's sons is going to get to be the new king of the Israelites. So Samuel says, show me your sons, bring them before me, and I will tell you which one is going to be the king. So Jesse does just that. He trots out his 7 sons. He brings them out one by one from oldest to youngest. Eliab, nope. Abinadab, nope. Shemaiah, nope. Jermaine, Jackie, Tito, nope. You look it up. All right, David is so far down the pecking order, so low in the birth order, that he isn't even brought to this meeting. He is the one that they left behind to take care of the sheep. So they say, do you have any other sons? Jesse says, I got one more, but he's the run of the litter. We left him with the sheep. Bring him here. David comes, and God says, this is the one. The little sheep herder. He's going to be the king. Anoint that. A little while later, war breaks out in the land. The Philistines who live along the coast are in a stalemate battle with the Israelites who live in the inland regions. They're both gathered on mountains on opposing sides of an open valley plain between them. And they're deadlocked. Neither army wants to enter into the field of battle because they will lose the high ground and they'll lose the war. So the Philistines send down their biggest, best, baddest warrior, Goliath. Goliath is a man-mountain. He's covered in armor. He's carrying a javelin, a spear, and a shield. He's carrying so much stuff, he has to have a shield bearer come with him. And he starts smack-talking to the other army. If you ever watch professional wrestling, I know y'all are huge fans, a lot of times they'll have these little cut scenes where the other one will try to intimidate the other opponent. And I always imagine Goliath as kind of like Randy Macho Man Savage. He was my favorite wrestler when I was a kid. And he said, give me somebody to fight. Anybody. Oh, yeah. All right, y'all aren't wrestling fans. That's okay. Now, this is a common way that some ancient battles were fought. You put your best guy against their best guy. Those two fight, and whoever wins the entire battle. That way you don't have to sacrifice your whole army. Not a lot of people will die. It's called single combat or trial by combat. Well, the Israelites look at Goliath and they're terrified. He is so big, so scary, so strong, they don't know what to do. And into this situation walks little sheep herder to be king David. He gets sent out with some bread and some cheese for his brothers and the commander of the army. This is important. He comes to this battle with bread and cheese. He is not a soldier. He's not even old enough to be someone's shield bearer. He's a punk kid. He is sent in with bread and cheese. He walks into the situation, and nobody wants to go down there. And David says, I'll go. Well, actually, he's so young, he probably said, I'll go. Send me down there. I'll do it. I've got God on my side. I'll take out Goliath. Now, the story from here on out is usually portrayed as an underdog story. There's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell which kind of reframes this whole idea. But this idea of a tiny kid against giant advanced weaponry versus slings and stones, David, though, isn't afraid as he goes into this fight. There's no sign that he's shaking in his boots, that he's terrified. He goes right up to King Saul and he says, look, I keep sheep for my dad. And occasionally, while we're out in the field, a bear or a lion comes. And when they come, I take care of business. They take a lamb, I take their life. They turn on me, I grab them by the jaw and I strike them down. And I come in the name of the Lord, in my heart, and it's in his name that I'm going to take this Philistine down. David is a bad, bad little kid. He's got swagger. He approaches this battle with a confidence that only comes from being young. It's not, and somehow it's enough, it's convincing enough that King Saul says, okay, give it a shot. They try and put armor on him, and he says, no thank you. Goliath taunts him. He says, come at me. I'm going to feed your flesh to the birds and your bones to the animals. You know the rest of the story. One stone straight between the eyes, Goliath goes down, and that's where we stop telling the story, right? Because what comes next is a little gross. David runs across the field, stabs Goliath, kills him, cuts off his head, and the Israelites chase the Philistines out of town. This is the confidence of a young person of immense faith. He has no problem doing things his own way. He doesn't feel the need to conform to the expectations of those around him, and everybody wants him to do it their way. They say, here, boy, put on this armor. You don't stand a chance without it. He says, no, I've got a different plan. I'm going to do it a different way. Goliath, who was a heavy infantry fighter, covered in armor, taunts him with these words, come to me. And there's a reason that Goliath wants David to come to him. It's because he knows that if he can get David within his arm's reach, this battle is over. He won't stand a chance if he can get a hold of him. David instead uses the skills that he has. Keep in mind, this is a young boy who spent, up to that point, we can only guess his entire life, sitting in a field watching sheep. Nary an iPhone or a book to look at. What do you do as a young child, bored out of your mind, with all you've got is rocks and a sling? You get really good at using a rock and a sling. In fact, archaeologists and anthropologists say that the stones that are present on this field are a heavy basalt rock. And if they were slung with a sling like the ones used at that time, it would have shot at a speed like a .45 caliber bullet. This kind of confidence to us often seems foolhardy. You know, we chastise young people for their lack of experience or for the way in which they choose to do something because it's different. Not the way we've done it or the way that we would do it. But you know, that young confidence often leads to amazing results. You know, by necessity, I've had to work with our youth lately as we're looking for a new youth director. And I've discovered that I'm old. And I've also discovered that they are incredibly smart. And they do things their own way in a way that I never would have imagined. And oftentimes it's faster, smarter, better than the way that I do it. They think differently, and they achieve and succeed in things that I can never even imagine. There's some things, it turns out, that they do better than I do. Their ways at times seem foreign and strange, but when you let them try, and you let them do it their way, amazing results sometimes come out. When David is allowed to go out and approach this battle in his own way, which runs counter to the way that things have always been done, he has great success. Now, he brings back proof of success in Goliath's head. Now, this was a common practice in the ancient Near East for identifying the enemy that you had killed. Because there weren't camera phones, no dog tags, no IDs in Goliath's pockets, the only way to identify that you had actually killed the person that you set out to kill in battle was to bring back their head. Same thing happens in the New Testament with John the Baptist when his head is presented. Goliath's head not only served as proof of his victory in battle, it's also David's resume. It's wonderful. David gets his first full-time job in Saul's house as a result of killing Goliath. The bad part for David is that he's incredibly good at his job. He's a competent young man. So good, in fact, that Saul becomes increasingly neurotic and insecure. If you have ever worked for an insecure boss, you know how tough that is. They are constantly worried about your success and how it makes them look. Makes Saul the worst boss ever. You know how you know you're working for the worst boss ever? When he throws a spear at you, not once but twice. That's what happened to David. When he sends you out to be a commander in his army, hoping that you're going to get killed in battle. When he tries to literally destroy your life on multiple occasions. But if we know one thing about David's story, he's fast on his feet. He jukes, he jives, he survives. And in this strange Hunger Games, Lord of the Flies kind of workplace, Saul comes to David for a performance review. So let's see, David, you remember you defeated Goliath and cut off his head. That was really great. Good work. And of course, there's that time I tried to kill you with a spear. You are one quick little guy. Fast on your feet, I like that. Good. Okay. Then I made you a commander of my army, and apparently you beat everybody I sent you out to, and all the armies love you. People really like you. You're a people person. Well, I'm thinking that it's time to give you a promotion. I'd like you to go to the next level. In fact, I want you to think about interviewing for the position of son-in-law. I want you to marry my daughter, Michael. She's beautiful. She loves you. You love her. No, not so fast. I got something else I need you to do. If you want this job, David, if you want to marry my sweet Michael, I'm going to need you to collect, let's say, 100 Philistine foreskins. The next time you complain about your job, the next time your boss asks you to do something ridiculous, I want you to remember David and thank God. Now, some of you are rightfully thinking, ew. But this is among the most unreasonable requests that anybody could ever ask of anyone. But what Saul is really asking David for is to go and kill these enemies and bring back proof. Carrying back 100 heads would be cumbersome. Foreskins, for lack of a better word, are more pocket-sized. And Saul isn't looking to ID the bodies. He just wants the evidence. And nobody gives that up willingly. So what does David do? Exactly what is asked of him. You've got so much to explain to your kids. Okay, he does exactly what's asked for him. In fact, some translations say that he doubles that. He brings back 200, in fact. Now, some of our young people are probably thinking to themselves as they hear the story, wow, right on, this is great. They are acknowledging how smart and gifted and underappreciated young people are. People in authority just don't understand how truly awesome we are. I'm underappreciated, I'm underpaid, I'm a genius, if people would just give me a chance. And we know that you're special. We know that. We know. Your parents tell us all the time. But you know what makes David special in this story? He does his job. When someone in authority asks him to do something, even when it seems unreasonable, even when it seems like it's too much, he does it. Not only does he do it, he goes above and beyond. And through it all, even as spears are whizzing by his head, he never dishonors Saul. If you want to be trusted in bigger things one day, you got to do your best work where you are right now. Be a good steward of the present. So if you're in school, be an awesome student. Get the grades, go to class, do what you need to do. If you're in an entry-level position, be the best employee they've got. Make yourself indispensable. You want to marry someone great? The greatest advice I ever heard on this was from Andy Stanley, who's a mega church pastor. He said, if you want to marry someone great, you need to work on being the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Your prayer right now as a young person is not recognize me, not look at me, not acknowledge me, but instead it is make me, develop me, transform me. You know, the greatest example of this is it took Jesus 33 years before he did anything worth writing about. And he was the perfect Son of God. For our older, more established, chronologically advanced people in the congregation, our job is to support and uphold and encourage these young people. To embrace at times the wonderful change they bring, even when it doesn't seem so wonderful, even it seems like it's not the way that we are used to doing things. I know that some of you think your job is just to resist them at every turn, but you know what we end up with if we do that over and over and over again? No young people in the church. Because they will find a way to use their gifts, their talents, who it is that God made them to be, with or without the church. If we stand as a stumbling block before them for too long, they'll walk away so that they can go and do what it is that they're called to do. Parents, grandparents, one of the things this story teaches us is that we have to learn to let our kids fight their giants on their own sometimes. This is hard for us. We want to step in. We don't want them to fail. We don't want them to fall. We don't want them to get hurt. So a lot of us hover. We helicopter parent over our kids. We're ready to jump in there and save them if the slightest sign of distress. But you know, in David's story, one of the things that I'm coming to realize is that it doesn't take long for Jesse to fade into the background. He kind of disappears after a little while. After he's there when David is anointed, after he sends David in with the bread and the cheese, Jesse doesn't really get mentioned again. He doesn't jump in there in front of Goliath and say, "No, Goliath, that's my baby boy. Run, David, run. I'll fight him." He doesn't catch every spear that Saul throws. He doesn't backseat command the army. He doesn't collect a single Philistine foreskin for David. But he's there when David is anointed. He's there at the beginning of his journey, at the point where God is about to begin something new in him. He stands sure that God is with his son, that God is going to protect him, that God's going to do great things with him, and then he lets him go. Friends, we have this great opportunity to give the children of this church, the children of our community, a firm foundation. That's what we're trying to do through children's ministry and baptism and confirmation and youth ministry, is to surround them with people that allow them and understand them as gifted and wonderful children of God. We are trying to send them out into the world anointed and ready to fight the battles that are going to come their way. Because there are going to be a ton. We know that, right? We know that there are going to be issues that they're going to face that we're going to want to jump into, that we're going to want to protect them from. But they've got to learn to fight on their own. That's what this time that we have with them is for. This time that they're on loan to us, that we get to shape and mold them and guide and direct them through this tumultuous time called childhood and adolescence and their teenage years. We get to try to put as much love and energy and power into them now so that they're ready. So that one day we can go, "You're on your own." This is a story about allowing people, young people especially, to grow and develop into the person that God wants them to be, and not trying to shove them into the mold of what we want them to be. You want to tell your kids a dangerous story? Tell them the story of David and Goliath. Let us pray.